Today's episode is exploring a topic that a listener sent in. A listener wrote in, hey, step parents reaching out. It could be helpful. It could make it more challenging. How do I decide? So let's look at it. How do you decide whether or not you should work with your ex's new partner? Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and I am super excited to explore today's topic for a few reasons. First off, you guys, I love it when you roll into my DMs and send me a topic you want me to cover. It creates the best episodes with the most realistic approaches. So if there's a thing that you're like, gosh, I really wonder if we've ever covered this on the show, roll in my DMs. Send me the message. Easiest place to reach me is definitely on Instagram. Facebook works too, but send me a message. I will get it added to the website so you can drop it in there. But until then, roll over to the DMs. Tell me what you want, because this is exactly what one of my listeners wrote in. Hey, Erica, I was wondering if you have any podcast topics on how to navigate high conflict co-parenting situation where the stepmom reaches out to be friends. I can see places that this would be helpful if the intentions are right, but I can also see this as a manipulation technique. If you have anything on this topic, please send it over. Whew, what a topic. What a topic that I have now had the experience of navigating twice on both sides. And good Lord, was it eye-opening to be on both sides of this equation, because as I've always said, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know what I didn't know when I first had to work with a step parent, and then when I became the step parent. I think it was really helpful because I got to explore all the places that I was triggered allowing a new step parent in. And then that helped me make sure that I was very aware, like, I don't want to do that to somebody else. So let's just get into the nitty-gritty of it. Okay. Is it beneficial to work with the other parent or the step parent? I think here's the biggest question. You've got to get clear on the intentions. Why does this other person want to take on more? What help do they think they're offering? What do they expect to get out of it? How do they think that this will help? What are they observing on their side? You've got to get through and understand, where are they coming from? Because we're humans having a human experience, which means that we all have expectations and intentions, and we all show up with our own story written in our mind. And when you add another person, you are now co-creating with another person. They bring their energy, they bring their ideas, they bring their hopes, their wishes, their dreams, their expectations, all the jazz that if they aren't aligned with yours, or if you cannot line up to where they're at, it's going to create more conflict. I wish that in any divorce situation, first, I wish that the parents could set their emotions aside and show up like a business relationship for the kids in the middle. At a bare minimum, a business relationship. The dream, can they ever get back to a place of acceptance and understanding and wishing the other partner well? That'd be even better. And then, blended families, when we look at what the new reality is, because it's not only just that you're divorced, but that the majority of families are now blended families. Random thought in my mind. My partner has some friends, single, he's in his 30s, he's out there dating. He's like, it's really rare to meet somebody who doesn't have kids. And so now you're looking at, she's got kids and he's got kids and everybody's blending kids together. Okay, blended families are a real thing. So how do we do it? Because we cannot do it with triggers. We cannot do it with past wounds. We cannot do it by expecting the other person to change so that we can stay happy. I think that divorce and co-parenting are going to be some of the biggest wake-up calls that we as a human have to go through. We have to figure out how to mend a broken heart while still having to deal with the other person. We have to be able to figure out how to own our behaviors, even when their behaviors are not kind. When you're married, you'd get in an argument, you'd take some space, and you'd probably heal it with sex, right? Eventually you'd make up sex. It's a real thing. When you're co-parenting, that last piece doesn't happen anymore. So there's no more realignment and there's fewer touch points. You don't see this person as much. So if every single touch point is high conflict, if every time you talk to them is frustrating and annoying and creates miscommunication, well, you don't have any other touch points in between where things go well to even it out. And so sitting in this place, I'm really challenging you and calling you to step up in that role. It's another place that we can control our own behaviors and our own actions and how things go and choose to look at things differently. So the first thing I would have you do is get really clear on your own intentions as to why. Why do you desire to work with a step parent? I rarely say make a pro and con list, but this time I am going to. Make a list of positive aspects. Make a list of things that are risky. Well, maybe they have their own agenda. Maybe they are doing this to manipulate me, to act nice, right? To get in a different way. We don't want to go into this situation blindly trusting that this is going to be the solution, but we do want to be open to the idea like, could this be a thing that shifts the dynamic for the benefit of the kids? I think that's the hardest part, right? Everybody wants to shift the benefit for themselves every time. And so over and over and over again with clients, with my partner, I'm like, how does this benefit the kids? Even myself, how does this benefit my son? If I can tell you why something is a bigger benefit for my son, then you better believe that's what I'm going to challenge myself to do. Even if it doesn't benefit me all the time. It doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's about how I'm helping create a world that benefits my son. Okay. So after you get clear on your expectations and you think through what might happen and you look at the risks, the next thing that I would do is to create a plan. It's a very logical start to this episode. I'd create a plan on what are some of the things that we could start to communicate on with the other person. And I probably would have a conversation with them and say, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about this. Tell me what your expectations are. Tell me why you think us working together would be great. Tell me, do you have any ideas on how you see this getting started? And you've already answered all those questions for yourself. I would start with very basic logistics, pickup times, drop-off times, coordinating schedules, coordinating school stuff now that school is in session. Keep it to the business. Keep it to the business of co-parenting, not the emotions. When you have had a chance to work with this other person for a while, what's happening is that you're building trust. You're learning who they are. You're building trust that they're going to do what they say. You are co-creating with a new person. And so you've got to give it some time. We kind of jump in hoping, oh, thank God they reached out. This is going to be great. We're just going to all do things the same. Okay, I'm going to challenge you and say, is it all the same between you and your ex? And you guys actually live together. You guys actually built a consistent family together. And I guarantee your two houses do not run the same anymore. So that reminder that we are all humans having a human experience, that other person is going to show up with their own beliefs and their own expectations and their own triggers. We had that. So now let's get into the emotions. Let's get into why it was hard. Here's a real open and honest conversation. As you guys know, I was separated for 2 years after I found out that he was in love with a coworker. After the 2-year separation, at the very end of it, he had said, I think I want to work on this. He didn't say I think. He said, I'm ready to work on this. It was Christmas. That was the Christmas card I got. And something was just always off. Something was wrong. It wasn't like something was missing. We were going through the business, but the emotions were not there. So by the time we hit our anniversary in February, I was looking at divorce lawyers. He was forgetting that it was our anniversary. And so by the time we got to, April, March, something like that, we both knew. And we both knew from a place of, you know what? This is a chapter, not a book. It was great while it was there, but I want us both to be happy. And I don't think we're both happy staying. And so we parted very peacefully. And she was still in the picture, and she came back in right away and moved in pretty quickly and got engaged in all the things because obviously they'd been in a relationship for 2 years. She was ready to move forward. So in came a new set of expectations. The good and the bad. The good and the bad is that I do truly believe that she had a good heart. She was trying her hardest to do the right thing. She was trying to show up and be supportive and be understanding. And she was trying to be good for my son. And it was just way more than she could handle. It was way more than a lot of people could handle, right? She was 15 years younger than us. She was really young. She wasn't a parent on her own. There were a lot of life experiences she hadn't lived through yet. She was in a different phase. She had just turned 21. So she was really in the drinking, partying phase versus, I'm well in my 30s, different phase. But at her heart, she really was trying. Didn't change the fact that she got triggered AF by a lot of things. And so when she first reached out, hey, I know things are really rough between you and your ex, and I just think it'd be easier, if I help communicate. The other reason she had reached out is just logistic wise. A lot of times she was with our son instead of my ex because he was at work, school hours. When my son got done with school, he was still at work. And so she had him a lot. And so she did need to be able to contact me or to talk to me or to coordinate a pickup. All of that makes sense. But very quickly, it started to blend into the emotions of what she was trying to create and what she wanted in her life. And that's the biggest awareness. This other person, this step parent that's asking to work with you, they have hopes and dreams for their life. And I guarantee their hopes and dreams did not include co-parenting with the love of their life's ex, or dealing with kids in the middle that have a lot of emotion, or learning how to love kids that are not theirs. There's a very different love between a child that you choose to love and a child that you are ingrained to love because you birthed them. It's just different. So in came her hopes and dreams and they rocked my world. I got told I didn't sign that divorce decree, so I'm not following it. One of the big things we had done was we had a son and a dog. And the son and the dog were both written in the divorce decree, 50-50 split on costs. And the son and the dog were supposed to go back and forth together because they were ours. And she quickly, I don't know if she called or texted, but she said, I didn't sign that, so I'm not doing it. And that dog is not welcome here. I got a new puppy and I'm doing my own thing. And then that's the way that it was. So what happens then? She's texting me and telling me this. I'm texting my ex being like, are you kidding me? Get her in line. This is what you signed. You legally signed this document while in a relationship with her. You got to follow it. But then he's also telling her something else. Enter the triangle of confusion. Tell her one thing, tell me another thing. I'm getting frustrated. He's not following through. She's getting frustrated. He's not following through. We connect. And at first there's this big, beautiful, aha, he's promising us two different things. So guess what? Now the two of us start to put pressure on him. And the only thing it did was make things worse. And so obviously the dog stopped going back and forth. She got her own little puppy. I felt like it wasn't the hill I wanted to die on. I always ask myself, is this the hill you want to die on? Is this the thing you want to continue to fight for? I made enough money to cover the dog cost. Was it fun? No, because she had a lot of health issues. We spent a lot of time at specialty clinics trying to work out what was wrong with her. And I was really bummed that I was covering it alone, but I could cover it alone. I was grateful that I was able to save up the money or to put it on a credit card or to make the choices. Okay, so prime example of she had her own hopes and dreams, but then in comes some of the bigger ones because as it goes, it gets more momentum. The snowball effect, right? Bigger things start happening. There were things that she did that I didn't agree with. Like the stuff was in the stockings long before the man came down the chimney. And my son came home super upset. Stuff was in the stocking, so he looked at it. And then she told him that he was a bad child and that Santa doesn't visit bad kids. And so he better stop that if he wants to see Santa. Okay, now I'm sure we have all made those claims to our children like, hey, Santa only visits good little boys and girls. But hearing that come out of the mouth of somebody else was insanely triggering. That hurt. There are going to be things that happen at the other house that you can't control. And your job is not to control that other parent. Your job is to figure out how to support my child. So we talked about that. We talked about how much that hurt. We talked about how we talked through, like, let's talk about the good examples. When are you kind? When are you caring? When are you helpful? Like, do we really think that you're a bad kid? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, then we're going to stay in that. But it creates a lot of extra co-creating. Now, the other thing, because ours spiraled so far off track from the intention, remember she had good heart, good intention in the beginning, to the traumas, the triggers, the bubbles that kept popping up, ours spiraled bad. We went to mediation twice. The first time we went to mediation, I showed up, had my lawyer, he showed up. He wanted her to have a seat at the table. And the mediator and the lawyer said, well, that's not commonplace. You guys have a room. You'll be able to discuss everything before your ex has to make a decision. But typically, no, she's not legally part of the agreement. She's not at the legal table. That was unacceptable, and they walked out. The mediating company was speechless. They're like, we have never had this happen before. And they were so kind. They're like, actually, we're going to refund you the full price because we don't know what to say right now. So then we got to go back and do it again. And I did let her have a seat at the table, and I hired a new lawyer who was much more of a bulldog to make sure that we really put her in her place so that she understood the difference between a step parent and a mom. And I think that's another really important topic, because now sitting on the other side of it, sitting on the side of now I'm the step parent, I don't want to trigger their mom. I don't want their mom to be threatened by me. I want their mom to see me as a loving, responsible, caring adult who is there for her kids. If they need to talk, or if they need to go have fun, or we do an adventure, or whatever it is. It's just a safe adult. We all need more safe adults in our lives. And so we did that second mediation. I let her sit at the table. We created new agreements. It was very interesting to try and work with 3 people at the table. So here's another lesson that came up before we went to mediation. I showed up and I was like, okay, you want her in the picture? She's here in the picture, right? You're now engaged. Let's create the relationship. The 3 of us met at a Starbucks with schedules and calendars to talk through like what we felt was best for our son. And almost instantly it became 2 versus 1. And that's another risk that you need to be aware of. 2 versus 1, where they sat across the table and they're like, well, we really think that this is better. We really think that this is better. We really think that this is better. And again, 2 versus 1. It instantly felt very disempowering. It instantly felt like I was set up to lose, because now I had to argue against 2 people instead of 1. And that was something that I didn't see coming. But once it happened, I was like, well, duh. Why didn't you see that happening? I think that there is a power between 2 people, the 2 parents being the ones that negotiate. So where does that land? Okay, so in this experience now of having been on the receiving side of my partner being partnered in 2 versus 1, and then being the step parent against the other parent, I really learned a lot on how I feel that role should go. So I feel as a step parent, your job is to support the parent, and the parent's job is to talk with the other parent. I think strongly that the 2 parents need to figure out their ish before a third person gets added. And this was a big thing. So when in my co-parenting, when it spiraled with the other woman, and it spiraled bad, she had sent a text. I can't remember if it was a group text to my ex and I, or just to me, but she said, you need to grow up. You're acting like a child, and your son needs a parent. And again, 15 years younger than me, I was triggered, so triggered. And the thing that she felt, her opinion on it, I felt I was acting like the adult. Here's what I had done. I said, because she and I had not been successful in being able to communicate respectfully and come to an agreement, I respectfully ask that she remove herself from the conversation, and my ex and I need to learn how to co-parent and communicate respectfully before a third person gets added. That's kind of basic. And I still stand by that. I think that unless the two parents can learn how to put their ish aside and come together, that then another person shouldn't be in there. Asterisk on the conversation. There are times when it is so high conflict and so toxic and maybe some mental instability that it is not possible to work with somebody. I get that. I am not saying that this applies for everybody, but I'm saying I do believe that it applies for the majority of us. The majority of us that just got really hurt, got really pissy in our divorce, really leaned into some narcissistic tendencies without actually being clinically a narcissist. Okay. So that's the asterisk. Are there cases where this doesn't work? Yes. You know, if that's your case. Here's how you're going to figure out if it's your case. You're going to try this. And if it gets better, then you know that it's possible for you to create the shift in the co-parenting relationship without having the courts involved, which is always better because it's way cheaper. If you're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted from overthinking, and stuck in uncertainty, this message is for you. You don't have to keep feeling that way. Inside the club, you'll find a safe space to rediscover who you are, clarify what you want, and determine how you want to move forward. Surrounded by women who truly understand and guided by expert support, you are not alone on this journey. Join us at thecrazyexwivesclub.com/the club. It's time to reclaim your life. Okay, so that was my request. My request was, as the parents, we need to grow the fuck up and talk to each other respectfully. If the drop-off is at 7, have the kid there at 7 or text me that you're going to be late. That wasn't happening. He showed up when he showed up. He decided what he decided. Like he was doing everything to try and rock my world, and I had to choose how I wanted to show up. So 2 versus 1, that's definitely a risk. And then the other thing top of mind is get really clear on your own boundaries, right? Get really clear on what's my ish that I have to clean up and where is the line in the road. Because we can't show up and demand that somebody act a certain way so that we don't get hurt. That's not really a good reason. You can remove yourself if it hurts you. You can remove yourself and create some space if it's bothering you. But when we expect everybody else to change so that we can be happy, that is such conditional living. And I am a huge fan of unconditional living, which means people are going to do shitty stuff. We're human. We make mistakes. We all do it. Even you do it sometimes to other people. And then we have to learn from it. And then we have to move on. And if the other person continues to do the shitty thing and never moves on and never learns from it and never changes their behavior, we should stop expecting them to change. Isn't that the definition of insanity? Showing up and expecting it, doing the same thing and expecting something different? Then you change. A boundary is a line about how you care for yourself. It's not an ultimatum of how they show up. It's how you take action for yourself to be your best self. And so, like I shared in that example, we tried. Yeah, it spiraled. And then I created a very clear boundary. I am unwilling to work together until my ex and I can clearly communicate. There was no trust. He was still lying. I don't like saying lying, but I guess it really was lying, but it's because I'm too nice, right? Like he wasn't really forthcoming in the truth. He was saying just what he needed to say to try and avoid conflict with me because he was tired of arguing. But it wasn't helping because he told her something else. So it'll come down to if all 3 parties can own their triggers, can be clear on, oh, that's mine. Okay, I'll take it. And then can they do the work to get clear on what the business relationship looks like? All right. So just like divorce, there's the business and the emotions. In fact, I created a program called the Emotions of Co-Parenting. It was one of the first programs I wrote because I was deep in co-parenting myself. So the Emotions of Co-Parenting, the link is down below. This is so adamant. If you are any way, shape, or form going to have to co-parent, even just with your ex, this tool, there's a journal and a video that you can watch, is going to guide you through how to get clear on who you are, how you want to show up, your expectations in co-parenting, where are you at, and then the best part, it teaches you how to be unconditional. It teaches you how to climb the emotional ladder so that when you are triggered, not if, when you are triggered by your ex or their new partner or something that is happening at the other house, you know how to take your power back. You know how to not get swept up in all the emotions. You have the power to choose when you respond and how you respond and really shift the dynamic. So much can be done when one person chooses to show up differently. So the link is down below. Watch the video, do the self-guided journal, and use that. I talk about, or I feel like, I always visualize things, but divorce is like a big storm, right? You are out in the middle of the ocean. You just had to get on a different boat, and everybody's boat's different sizes. We're not talking about that. But the storm is raging. The waves are hitting. Everything's crashing against you. You don't know which direction to go. You can't see your way out. The emotions of co-parenting is like dropping an anchor. It's like creating some stability to say, oh, this is how I want to show up in this. And as you start to drop anchors, multiple anchors, each little piece of the puzzle of your new life, how you want to show up, the energy you're bringing to the room, who you want to be, gets very clear. And guess what? The storm, it can't beat you up anymore. It can't knock you around. It can't throw you down. It can't give you all the tumbles because you are clear on who you are and you get to stand in that confidence. And so the emotions of co-parenting give you that anchor when it comes to how you want to work with your ex or even how you want to work with a step parent when they show up in the picture. All right, let me think for a second. 2 versus 1, they all have their own triggers when they show up. You can start it. God, my wish is that everybody can co-parent with everybody in the big blended family. Let's talk about that too. But be very clear on your own boundaries. So if it gets out of hand in the wrong direction, how do you regain control? Hey, I think this is a better conversation, for us to all have together, or this is a conversation I need to connect with my ex with first. If it gets really out of hand, like my example is like her starting to throw attacks at me via text, and I just stopped. I was like, we're not doing this. We're not. And I had to toe the line on that because good Lord, did she buck. She refused to return my son unless I had the respect to talk to her. You can imagine how triggering that was. Did you have the respect when you were sleeping with a married man? But grace. I extended so much grace, and I just continued to repeat, she's a human having a human moment, and she is in way over her head. I was not going to stoop to her level. I was not going to be brought down. Before we talk about the dynamics of a blended family, let's talk about then the other side. So I went through the gauntlet. 6 years of having to co-parent with the other woman in all her traumas, her triggers, her, my guess is her very broken heart. I think she really did love my ex, or what she thought it was going to be, and it didn't work out that way. And you're watching somebody go through massive chaos and destruction and disappointment, all the things. Doesn't mean that what we were experiencing in my house wasn't valid, right? Doesn't mean I didn't have to rise up and be clear and calm and really fight for and advocate for what is in the best interest of our son. And that was just always running in my head. What is in the best interest of our son? And when you come from that point, what is in the best interest of your children, you usually can be a little bit more successful. I was on a chat yesterday and somebody's like, well, I'm contemplating going back to fight and change what our parenting is. It's 50-50 right now, and he's being difficult. And I go, okay, but what is in the best interest of your child? We've got to ask that question first, because unfortunately, we created this mess. We are the ones that either picked the wrong person from the start, or lost ourselves along the way, or let the problems and resentment get so big that it wasn't fixable anymore. And the kids are the ones that are stuck in the middle. And so you will always be asked, challenged almost, to rise up, to do divorce differently. Don't let it become this bitter thing. Don't let it be, like the one who still bitches about their ex when they're like 50, 60, 70 years old. Like, I don't want to be that. I might not shout his praises, but I sure as heck am going to be like neutral, and I hope that he finds his way. I hope that he finds what he wants in life. It's what I hope for everybody. Again, that's one of my other anchors. I really got clear and I want what is best for everybody involved. Anchor set. Then I can go back and ask myself every time I have to make a decision, is this what is best for everybody involved? Is anybody winning right now, right? Okay, so the other side of it, now that I'm the step parent, I had to get really clear. It was funny because I got swept up. I got swept up in the like, ooh, I'm going to bring them treats. And I realized that I was so pissed when my ex's fiance used to always send my son home with candy. And I was like, oh, she's the Disney parent. She's doing all the fun stuff. And then I called myself out on it because I was totally doing it. You know, like I'm in Target and I'm like, ooh, the boys would really like this. I should buy this for them. And I was like, wait, you're not buying it for your son. Like what is your motivation behind it? The motivation was I was trying to build a relationship, and the easiest way to build a relationship is to show up with presents and fun things to do. So when I realized that, I called myself out and I said, okay, I don't want to do that. That is not the type of relationship, a transactional relationship that I want to build. And so then I got clear on like, okay, who do I want to be? How do I want to support? In my opinion, the role of a step parent is to support the parent in their interactions with their ex. Did I also do the thing of trying to communicate directly with his ex? Yes. Did I think it was going to help to relieve some of the conflict? 100%. Did it? No. It made my life really miserable and difficult, and I was getting really upset. And then my partner and I were fighting, and I looked at him and I was like, I refuse to allow her to still have this much input in our lives. And he's like, 100%. And I go, great. Then we're going to take some of our power back and we're going to create some other boundaries. How often are we responding? How often are we texting, right? And I purposely stepped back because the more I tried to help with like, what did we want? Not what did we want, but more help with like, how are you responding or how are you writing the email? Because it was really high conflict. And so, you know, just like you'd have a copy editor or a boss read your email before you send it, I'd read it and I'd be like, here, you know, here's how I'd say it differently or whatever. It didn't work. It just added so much more chaos. And so then I removed myself and said, my role is to support you in being the best dad that you can be and showing up for your boys. And how can I do that? I can support you, partner. You are going through something incredibly emotionally challenging and frustrating and all the things. I will listen to you. I will support you. And then I will ask you, do you want my opinion on how I would handle it? We can talk through it. And then I let him pick how he wants to move forward. I am not his mother. I am his partner. It's a really big shift. We are not their mothers. We cannot do the work for them. They have to be able to do the work. And he's always been willing to do the work. He's not trying to avoid it. It's not like my ex didn't want to do the work. He didn't want it. He wanted to turn that over to somebody else. But I think there's a very clear lane for a step parent. How do we support this family that we've created on our side? How do we support these kids? And that leads us to this final topic that I want to chat through, which is blended families. Blended families are so becoming the norm, where you have children who have siblings that are not, you know, they're the step siblings as we used to call them, but like we don't call my son and his kids like those are your brothers. They're not your step brothers or whatever else. I mean, that is the family. This is the family that we have chosen to create. And I think that much like divorce is calling for you to level up, step parenting asks you to level up one level further. There has been such an eye-opening experience for me in the difference of choosing to love kids and birthing a child that you automatically love. And it's even different when you think about like nieces and nephews. It's so fascinating to me to look at how our underlying system creates a current of like automatic love and acceptance when you have a child or when your sibling has a child, right? And then you pick somebody, you fall in love with somebody and you say, I choose you. I choose you and I choose all of your conditions. And your conditions might be little kids or pets or crazy ex-wives or all the things, right? I choose you in all your conditions, which means that now I'm your partner to help navigate that. I think that blended families, there's going to be such a awareness that is coming. Mark my words. Tell me there's not going to be a bazillion books coming out on the effects of blended families and the steps to do it right. And, you know, the biggest lessons in divorce apply for families too. I think that it is super important to say and to believe and to show up with action that love is a choice. I choose you in this family. I choose you to be in this family, and I want you in this family, and I want you to feel included because you have kids coming in that don't feel included anymore. Heightened awareness, heightened sensitivity, and things are completely different between the two houses. It smells different. The milk is different in the fridge. The cereals are different. Whatever it is, everything is different. The rules are different. So as the parents of this, how are we teaching our kids love and acceptance? I mean, there's 3 rules. There's 3 rules that I live by: love, abundance, and grace. I choose to love you for exactly who you are. You didn't choose this life. You didn't choose these conditions. So I unconditionally love you for you. I don't love you to try and change you. I don't love you to move you into something else. I love you as an imperfect human. Abundance. There is enough for all of us. This whole lack mentality of me versus you, or right versus wrong, or, polarized choices, I think that there's enough for all of us. That is challenging sometimes, especially when you go from, a family of 3 for us to a family of 6. You better believe going out to dinner with a family of 6 is a much different experience than a family of 3, but I choose to lean into there is enough. There's also enough love from each parent. And it goes back to 1, right? How can I unconditionally accept these little munchkins for exactly who they are? And then 3, grace. Because we are all humans having a human experience. We will not do it perfectly. We will not do it right. So when somebody does something that hurts you, that pisses you off, that you don't agree with, I first extend grace. Ooh. They must really be struggling right now to do that. Somebody who yells and screams at you or sends nasty texts must really be hurting on the inside to be able to take that out on somebody else. And when I can see them as a human who is also just struggling to navigate their emotions, okay, I can see that in you. I don't have to own that. And then I can choose. I can choose how I show up. I can choose how I interact with you. I can choose that I don't respond. When you send nasty texts, I do not respond. I choose to create boundaries of how I operate so that I can continue to stay in love, abundance, and grace. And they are going to be huge when it comes to co-parenting. Choosing to love somebody else's kids is not for the faint of heart. I hear it and see it all the time. Oh, they're so gross. Oh, they're not doing this. Oh, they're blah, blah, blah. And every time I hear an adult talking like that about a kid, because here's the deal, kids are gross, right? They're dirty and they're learning how to wipe their face and do all sorts of stuff that we as adults, maybe don't like, but they're kids. They're little tiny kids. And would you have wanted somebody to talk to you like that? If you were struggling as a kid to navigate the ever-changing world around you, is that how you want adults to show up? And so making that choice, really challenging yourself to say, okay, what can I let go of? What can I move through? There's been so much, and we'll save that for another episode when I talk more about my stepkids, but they have literally challenged every single thing of my orderly clean? What the hell is the word? Hold on, we're going to have to. They have literally challenged everything about like the order and the cleanliness that I like to keep my house, and like just all the things because of who they are, things that they can't control, conditions, diseases that they have. And so it has challenged me to become more unconditional. It has challenged me to grow and love and accept as a human. And that's a beautiful gift. It's a beautiful gift to know that your world can continue to get bigger and bigger, and you get to continue to stay your amazing, loving, happy, beautiful self in the center of it. So I hope that today's chat helped raise some awareness for you. I hope that you found some ahas. I hope that you felt it. As you listened, were there pieces that just resonated so deeply in your body, you could feel it? Those are the things that you want to hold on to. Go check out the emotions of co-parenting. Your homework this week is to click on that link. I start the program. Like if you are struggling in co-parenting and it's not about step parenting, it's about co-parenting. So it can be used for you and your ex. It can be used for you and grandparents. It can be used for you and a step parent, any of the above. Go click on the link. Start the program. Get very clear on who you want to be as a co-parent and drop that anchor. So that when the storm changes around you, when new things are thrown at you, when new ships show up trying to threaten your way, you know who you are and you know how you want to show up, because at the end of the day, there are kids watching you. And these kids are learning, how do we accept? How do we love? How do we treat other people? And they're watching how you treat your ex and how you treat any of their new partners. So until next week, you guys, enjoy the emotions of co-parenting. Give yourself grace. And I can't wait to see you on the other side. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.